Andy Curtin, I'm here with
Vivek Mabubani.
and also Rachel Smith from Hong Kong Stories. Very excited to have you here today.
Thank you.
Once upon a time, we had a podcast, and now we have a guest.
There we go. He's been planning that all day.
At least somebody was planning all day.
Yeah. So you can check me out online at Instagram, Facebook. What else am I on? Twitter, Tinder, all of that.
Yeah.
I'm not on Tinder, by the way. I have 2 kids. I've been married for years. At Andy Curtin on all that stuff. What social media are we looking for you, Rachel?
So you can find me at Rachel Smith Studio, and you can find Hong Kong Stories at hongkongstories.com.
What about Senseless Art?
Senseless Art as well. Yeah, you can find me on there too.
Yeah, and I've got at Funny Vivek sometimes with the letter M because someone took the other one. So, yeah.
And he's trying to hunt him down online.
Yeah, you're not that funny.
And we are hunting a couple of subscribes at the moment. So if you can, subscribe to the podcast. People ask me why you should do that. It helps with the algorithms for helping us grow the podcast.
It's
So
one click.
do it. Just click on subscribe. If you're on iTunes, that's the best. But anything, just subscribe.
And if you have a keyboard, remember, you can leave a review. And you can click on the ratings. The correct answer is 5 stars.
Yeah, and as the review, just write 5 stars repeatedly again and again. That'd be
Copy,
great.
paste.
It also
So-
helps if you write down this best podcast I've ever listened to.
Second
the
best?
hosts are amazing. Well, you can just put that for all of them. You see, you don't have to worry about people.
No one's
checking back.
comparing your reviews. So that is a good segue, though, because today we're talking about Hong Kong stories and Hong Kong's, vibrant storytelling community, which you are at the pinnacle of, shall we say. And also you've got a big podcast and involved in some other stuff like the Literary Festival. So, yeah, today we're going to be talking about how did the scene start?
How different it is from stand-up.
Yeah, what makes a good story? How you can tell when people are lying. Why is it that you want no morals?
Yeah.
No morals in stories.
We're against morals.
And never started by saying, my story is about. We don't do that.
Yeah, don't interact with the crowd.
Yeah.
Well, you interact with the crowd, but in a different way than stand-up.
So when was the beginning of the current iteration of Hong Kong's story community? Is that what I should call it? Story community?
Well, we just call it Hong Kong Stories, really. I guess so. We're like.
But
a
there's more
community,
you've got the spoken word festival as well. It is a little bit broader than.
Well, Hong Kong Stories started it all off in 2012.
So there was nothing before that.
Nope, nothing
Wow.
here.
There were no stories in Hong
Actually,
Kong.
No one
I lie. There was one. There was
People
one.
just told anecdotes with no meaning.
Yeah, there was no climax point.
They stood on the street and just talked to themselves.
No characters.
And no, nothing.
No development. People were just like, work.
Yeah.
That's it.
Something happened.
No, I'm wrong, because there was another group called Speak, and they did a show in a bar. But they let anybody come up to the microphone and talk, so I didn't like
Well,
it.
I mean, they are called Speak. It's literally just saying, do it.
Was it a group or a bar? Was it?
Well, it was done at, I can't remember, a bar that doesn't exist anymore.
Sure.
So that's why there were no stories before. You see, Speak. There's nothing to it. It's
Yeah,
just
that's
like,
a problem.
Speak.
There was a lot of dogs, though. Woof.
Oh,
Speak.
okay. Well,
No.
So what was the genesis of Hong Kong Stories then?
It started off with 2 guys who really liked the moth
Yeah.
in the U.S., and they wanted something like that in Hong Kong, so they decided the only way they were going to get it was to start off themselves, and they started the moth and then got an order to cease and desist, because that's not a name that you can use.
So just so people know, the Moth is a US brand of
Yes.
storytelling,
Yes.
and they just use the brand.
Yes.
Do you know what?
set
I've
them off.
seen this in comedy so many times. So many times. People just go, I like that logo.
Yeah.
I like that name.
yeah.
And
I'm just
they
going
get-
to change the color.
They get a bit, what happens is they get away with it for a couple of years. They succeed. And
Yeah.
then someone's like,
I think they got away with it for 1 month.
See, that's
I
the
bet you
kind.
the Moth polices it pretty carefully, though.
Yeah, they're Google searching the moth every day. What is that? Who's
Well,
using our logo?
I think
We're in
they-
8 legal battles against insects.
This zoo better to see us in the court.
I think they wanted to use the moth because it was a nice short form to tell everybody what storytelling was, because a lot of people don't have any clue what storytelling is. And we still get regular people coming and saying, we've got a group of 6-year-olds. Can you come and tell them stories? And we're like, no, we can't. Sorry. Well,
Was
we
it like-
can, but
Yeah.
it's not going to be
How do they
appropriate.
feel about violent sex stories?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's probably a bunch of parents going like, can you come over to my house and tell my kids stories at 10 p.m.?
Well, we had this doing stand-up in mainland China, was people would bring their kids wanting them to learn English.
Yeah.
They're like, come on. And we're like, this is filthy material. They're like, no, it's fine. He's got to learn it somehow, As long
It's the alphabet.
As long as it helps him in university.
Do you get that, Rachel? Do you get a lot of
He's
parents?
5.
Not as much anymore because we're fairly well established now, but we do still get parents, especially people who come and tell stories they want to bring their kids. We have a 16 plus advisory, but you can bring your kids if you want, as long as they're going to be quiet during the
Oh,
performance.
I don't allow it. I don't want him in there. Get him out.
Well,
And I have kids.
yeah.
So I can say.
That's
get your
why.
fucking kids
The
out of here.
last 2 years, we've had a couple of people with sort of 12-year-olds will bring them along to listen to mom or dad's story, and then they tend to leave afterwards. But we have also had early days, we had kids who'd come and, there's somebody talking about their sex change, and it got pretty graphic. And, there's this 8-year-old kid in the audience just going, what are they talking about? And mom's kind of going, can I cover their ears without anybody noticing?
Yeah, right. That's not a good look.
We don't really get as many of those as we used to.
You see, the problem is this is the
So
spoken word.
Chinese or expat, just out of interest?
These ones were expats.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I mean, the problem, though, is that it is spoken word, not read word, so they never read the flyer saying 16 or above. So they probably just were like, oh,
Yeah, look at the comedian bringing out jokes to the podcast.
open mic night. No, I was just thinking, because what
Wow.
parents would actually see a leaflet that says 16 and above advised
Mate.
and still go like, my kids are mature.
Plenty. French people. I'm not joking.
Oh, I
Every
didn't.
time they come on, every time they come in, we're like, you can't bring your kids in here. Like, but we are French. It's okay. We know. They have already seen.
True. Yeah,
Our
yeah.
bedroom door, it has no door.
I would like to just clarify that this podcast, each
How bad was
person
that
does not
accent?
reflect the whole podcast.
Yeah.
It is solely per person.
75%. All of me and half of Vivek. So we're getting a bit sidetracked here. So we had a month of trying to be the moth, and then what happened after that?
And then they started off doing. They had some shows for about. It was about 6 months before I joined. They set up on Meetup.
Oh wait, wasn't this after they changed it to candlelight or something?
The Campfire was
Campfire,
the first
yeah.
one.
Ah,
but
yeah.
That's a moth thing.
Copy, because they're moths that fly around campfires.
Yeah.
So that was a direct copy in relation.
The moth is a Campfire is the moth. It was the name of their live shows for a long time, I think. And so it was about 6 months, and then they were putting it up on Meetup, and people were finding it through that. And you'd go to, well, what happened to me, I went to a Meetup. Friends of mine were bugging the shit out of me and saying, like, oh, you got to go to the Meetup. It's really awesome. But I'm not really a joiner. Like, it's so tedious.
It's only cool if I'm the first person to do it.
Yeah.
It's just, you got to be all enthusiastic
Yeah.
and like other people and stuff like that.
True. And then the worst thing about Meetup is after the event, whether you went or not, it asks you, how was it? And you're just like, oh, I feel obliged to have to respond now. Oh, and they're going to know how I thought it was. And then they'll be thinking, well, you weren't fun either. Why are you complaining about
we
us?
still recruit through Meetup, so I know I'm slamming it here, but go to Meetup and find a Hong Kong story.
I don't do much promoting these actual marketing these days, but we use Meetup in a lot of markets.
It's
Taiwan, I think we use it.
It's still a good way to
I don't even know what
about
it is.
stuff.
I just see its name in the marketing
Yeah.
sheet.
Well, fair enough. I guess different places, different people. I mean, even if you get that one extra person through a certain,
If you're
channel.
in a new market and you don't have established channels, you got to tap all that stuff.
Yeah.
And Meetup is a great place for us because it's really community based, and anybody can find it. Blah blah blah, and it gives you a bit of a, it's all in English,
You got to
so you
start.
have to be able to
You got to
speak
get
English, so-
people in somehow,
exactly.
so you get your channels built.
Exactly. So that part's, I went to a Meetup. It was around, the only reason I went to it because it was literally around the corner from my house. Like, it was almost in the same building, and I was like, fine, I'll go there. Fucking thing. And so I went, and it was these two guys, and they said, great, tell us a story. And I told the story about how I met my husband, and they said, can you tell this live on stage on Tuesday? I was like, okay. So I went and did it. And then once you kind of do it, you...
Did you get hooked straight away?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
this
love it.
was just
It's like
like...
stand up.
Yeah, once you know it, right? Once you're on, you're like, this is it.
It's
This
like
Once you get
stand
that-
up without the pain.
Maybe, I don't know.
But everybody's
Can you
really-
bomb? You must be
You
able to
can't.
bomb.
Honestly, like you can, but everybody's still really polite.
Yes, there's no polite in
Yeah.
stand up. You bomb for 20 seconds. They're like, we hate you.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we're like stand up for people with fragile egos.
I have to say, I've done a couple of the story shows, and as a stand up, people aren't expecting jokes, and the ease to make a story crowd laugh compared to a comedy club, it's like
full on.
kitty gloves.
But the
Oh, yeah.
worst thing though with stand-up comedians doing stories that you have this urge.
you
to
can't
kind of,
not laugh.
You're just like,
it's so hard to stand there and go. For
yeah,
like 15 seconds.
I tried it once to do the storytelling thing, and it was weird for me because I'm like, I want to hit a punchline now, but I kind of feel like that's not the point
But you
here.
do
Yeah.
it. You cheapen your story a lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you're like, I got a punchline here.
yeah,
In fact,
yeah.
we tell people when they come to the workshops, we say no stand-up comedy routines. Like if you're out there for laughs every time, you're gonna die.
Yeah.
Because people aren't expecting that. They're expecting you to like stand up and tell a real
If you're
story.
good, you can smash the shit out.
yeah.
True, but if you're good, then you're not doing the every joke every 2 seconds. You're doing the story.
I mean, I
Yeah.
appreciate that because with storytelling, you kind of want to go on an emotional journey / go
Absolutely.
into a different world rather than just like tickle me and make me giggle kind of deal. So it's a different depth. Like with comedy, we have to kind of hit them on the spot of like, that's funny, that's a visual that I kind of enjoy.
Yeah.
With storytelling, I'm certain feeling something, right? And I think that's the problem because like for myself, if I have to make you feel something, I got to feel something and I'm not dealing with my emotions.
And I'm dead on the inside. So.
After all these years and those open mic nights of people booing or whatever, I'm like,
Yeah.
you know what? I feel nothing.
And all the horrible things you've sat through people say on stage.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
when people say to comedians, like, that was so offensive. You're like, yeah. So
we don't-
you
we
were
don't do
hooked.
it that
You were
same way.
hooked. You got
Yeah, I
in.
was
You're
hooked.
like, "Paul, this is. I need to do this again."
yeah. I was like, this is awesome. Not only do I get to tell my stories, which I do ad nauseum to friends and family, but people actually listen to me and like it and praise me for it later.
There's a certain addiction to it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, like after a while, you kind of have this itch where you're like, I want to feel that experience on stage, telling people what I've gone through, what I thought of, or, what's been happening.
And it's hugely powerful. Like you're standing there and you're talking to people about, some random little experience you've had. And then after the show, people come up to you and go, oh my God, same thing happened to me. And you're like, I'm not alone.
I also was on a bus one time.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
So what happened to take it? Obviously there's been a pretty big journey from there to where you're at now.
Yeah.
You're a huge established entity in the city.
Mm.
How did it, did you get in there and you're like, all right, this needs organization?
God, no. I didn't take over until 2016.
What's that, 4 years later, did you say?
Yeah. It was, about that. And that was because the two founders, Tom moved back to the U.S.
Oh, yeah. Tom.
And David passed away, so he wasn't doing as much organization.
Oh, he's doing
as-
less after that.
Yeah, he was.
Well, so much for contributing
Why is he-
anymore.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
did try and leave everything to him, but it just wasn't passing the
Yeah.
desk.
He wasn't
so-
replying emails.
Yeah.
It's been on an autoresponder
Absolutely
for...
rubbish. Like I'm telling you, you just can't rely on people these
Oh,
days.
man.
She's accusing us of hunting punchlines.
Exactly. She just throws out, oh yeah, this guy he passed away. We're like, whoa, what? That's a twist.
Yeah. So in that case, it was myself and several other the long-term members who took over, and over time, it's definitely a collective organization. Like we all work together and we all work really hard to do it as a collective as well.
But you have pretty detailed processes, clearly. Like,
Yeah.
you've at some point you've realised you can't just let people go straight on stage, which
No.
is a big...
We still get people every once in a while who go like, yeah, so I'm here. I'm going to go up on stage third. And
We
you're
will
like,
I'll have a professional comedian on stage do an hour, and people are like, hey, can I go up next? What do you think this is?
The craziest thing is like you see the poster, the guy's head is there, it says headliner.
It's got like,
Yeah.
Comedy Central,
Yeah.
Netflix, and they're
Yeah.
like, it's got this funny joke about an Irishman.
Right, they're emailing you the CV during the show. Just check it out,
Less and less, probably less in a venue like this, but it does happen.
yeah.
Do you have any fun stories of it going? What was there like?
So-
Was there like an incident where you're like, we got to vet him. We can't let him go up.
God,
And
we had, and we've had a couple of times where we've had professional people come in, and sometimes the worst ones are people who have are very high in
Confident.
their own profession.
Oh,
and they're like,
yeah.
oh yeah, I'm a journalist. I could just walk up and do this. I do improv. I can walk up and do this. I do this. I can walk up and you're like, no, dude, you have to go to our workshops. And we make people go through a lot of hoops to join us.
Fair enough.
And, we'll get people who go, oh, yeah, I know what I'm doing already. I don't have to come to this. But we have had a couple of people who came in years ago now. This is like 2004 14, somewhere in there. And we had a couple of people and we're like, you got to get that guy off the stage. He's been talking for 12 minutes. And he
Yeah.
hasn't made a
Oh,
point
yeah,
yet."
yeah.
We have the light. There's a red light up there.
Yeah. And-
We're on the stage at the Riff Comedy Club right now, so we have the red light.
Yeah.
And that gets hit a few times, and then we're up the back just shaking phones at him.
So actually, it's really similar to stand-up because, for example, you have a show and you have guys telling stories, and if someone goes over time, it actually hurts the next person because the people in the audience are getting tired.
Especially if
Right.
it stinks.
Yeah.
Yeah. If everyone's into it, okay, fair enough, but still, don't go over your time because you're still killing the rest of the show for everyone else. Now, the one thing I'm actually curious about, see, with comedians, you've got that typical thing, oh, you're a comedian, yeah, tell me a joke, right? So with you guys, you get, oh, yeah, you tell stories, tell me something, tell me a story right now. Do you ever get that?
Nobody ever says that to us twice because you say, "Oh, you're a storyteller. Tell us a story." I'm like, "Have you got 20 minutes? 'Cause
Oh,
let's sit
That's
down."
great.
Challenge accepted.
Just tell
Oh.
him a bad story.
Yeah.
You can tell him anything at all, right? You're like, I haven't
once
done-
upon
I
a time, it was a Tuesday in February.
Yeah, exactly.
And you find yourself collecting these things too, right? You're on holiday and you're like, "Oh my God, I can't believe that is a story that just happened to me. That's
You get
great.
on the-
I'm going to
you
write
get-
that down."
Yeah, you get on the hunt for ideas, right?
To some extent, yeah. And then when you're sitting there talking to other people and when you're in the workshops, you're also going, "Oh, you had that experience? Oh, well, wait to hear this experience."
Sure, yeah.
Because it's
It's
all
tough in comedy, I don't know if you have this, but you get people have similar experiences.
Mm.
So, and whoever got the joke first, it's theirs. So you can't, you just got to give it to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
people will go, but it happened to me as well. It's like, doesn't matter. They
Yeah.
did the joke first.
Well, wouldn't it be that if someone had such a unique experience, they'd be able to tell a similar story, but in their own signature and take? Wouldn't that be
in
it?
storytelling, it's not as competitive in that way because you are telling it in a different way and you can tell your stories in very different methods. Like sometimes you tell a story that where nothing really happened, but the story is all about what happened inside your head or the panic that you went
Yeah,
through.
sure. I mean, I don't. I just mean there could be parallel thinking.
Yeah.
And
You
yeah,
know.
yeah, and we curate our shows as well,
So you can
one of the
weed
great
it out a
things-
little bit.
Yeah, one of the great things about our hosts, our group, is that our hosts are different each time. So the stories, I like certain stories, so my shows will be like stories that I like because that's the control that I have.
Yeah.
I don't choose a story that I don't like. Go to somebody else. But that means that each show is a little bit different naturally already. And if I've got two stories that are very similar, I'm just going to say, next month, go and see that person.
Yeah.
They're hosting. So
I
they go
feel
and see them
like
next month. It's
I feel
fine.
like in the grassroots art scene, quality control is a long game.
It is. It is.
And you gotta fight a little bit. You gotta go up against, because it's easy to not have quality. Not having quality control is the easy route.
Yeah.
That's the keep everyone happy route.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But then the show
And it's
suffers.
not easy to go to people. Your story stinks.
Yeah.
You can't do the show.
Because we're dealing with people with fragile emotions, you know?
Oh,
The
yeah.
guys who are
Especially
like,
when it's like, but my grandma died. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, but it wasn't interesting.
yeah, she died at the age of 80. She was
But
smiling
died of
in
old
bed.
age.
No one wants to hear that.
was
We
a-
workshop stuff so that we make it interesting. Like, we
Right.
can teach anybody how to be a
You're
good
like, what if your
storyteller.
grandma was killed by aliens? I'm just saying.
You see, this would be great for people who have relationship problems where, like, the girlfriend's like, "You're so boring." You're like, wait a second, I'm gonna get someone to make this interesting.
Yeah.
Tell her my day. Tell me what I did
You
today.
can be a relationship consultant.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like our group, we can make any story interesting told by anybody, but they have to be willing to work. And that's the thing. They have to be willing to change their story. So you get people who come
Wow.
in and they're really boring and they're not willing to change their story. You've gotten out. You're like, yeah, sorry, you just don't fit in. And there's a selection process. You got to pitch your story to us.
Wow.
We
It's
don't
like,
just
it's not
accept
just your
anybody.
story. It's you.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's
actually say
yeah.
We said, try next month. You can be somebody
We
else's
don't just say
problem.
that.
Yeah.
We email.
Yeah. Exactly. Right.
We also give you hints of like, when you told that story, this part was really good, but you're missing all the details there. Or, you've got a lot of detail here, but you don't get to the action of the story until like
How much
5 minutes in. You need to cut that.
How much yawning did you notice?
Yeah. That's how you judge. You're like, okay, guys, with comedy, we look for laughs per minute. This is how many yawns per minute.
Yeah, you
We're
gotta keep it
allowing
low.
one maximum, and then you're out.
With storytelling, it's so much easier than with comedy because we're not looking for laughs. We're looking for, can you connect with the audience? And our one of our spiels is that
So what makes a good story?
a connection, that it can be felt by other people, that you can tell a story and they can be there with you like they've experienced it themselves.
So you've brought them into your world, or they have a parallel experience that they can kind of go like, I
Is
had
it
that.
predominantly non-fiction that people are telling?
Oh, we only tell true stories.
So it's only true stories.
Only true stories. We are very narrowly
Have you ever
focused.
busted anyone for lying?
Oh, yeah.
How does that go down?
One of my favorites was this woman who came to a pitch workshop, and I think that the show, I can't remember, it was something about Valentine's Day, so it's something about love. And she comes to this pitch workshop, and she's got like 5 pages of notes with pictures, and she's telling this story about this teacher who had sexually possibly molested, possibly it was consensual, but she was underage, blah, 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 blah. And there's photographs. And she's telling the story, and she kept changing the pronouns. Like she kept going, I mean, we, I mean, he, and you're like, take your softcore porn and shove it up your ass.
You're like, you're not just a
And
bad
leave.
storyteller, you're also a bad liar.
Exactly. I mean, if someone comes on stage and so the other day I ordered a pizza and the guy came with a pizza without the sausage. Now I was confused and you're like, yep, I've seen that before. That's not happening. Yeah, you're not fooling me.
Well, the thing is, when you're in the workshop, you're asking a lot of questions around it. And it's very obvious when somebody's telling a story for the punchline or they're telling the story for the reason. It's obvious, and you just
But then,
get a feeling
how
for
much
it.
of it ends up being like kind of improvised in a way, or scripted? As in, like, do a lot of people have their whole story memorized, or
Oh, yeah.
it's like full on proper memorized? You're performing an actual scripted
That's
story.
correct.
Oh.
We do we need most are written out. We have 2 or 3 different rehearsals. I mean,
Do you get many
full
do
on.
you get many people choke?
Oh, occasionally, but honestly, we've had so one time there was this lady who was talking about being a leftover woman. She's Chinese and she was in her 30s, and she wasn't upset for herself, but she was upset because her father felt that she was being left behind. And it was a really emotional story. It was beautifully told. And she started kind of choking up on stage, and she just looked over at the host and goes, I need a hug. The entire room is at this point clapping, going, you're fine, keep going, you're good, it's all good. And everybody just waited. She had a hug. She continued talking. It was brilliant.
Yeah, see, that's a critical difference from stand-up.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I'm like,
Imagine
wait a
I need a hug
second.
from the MC. And I'd be like, get out of here! Never come back.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, wait a second. Yeah.
Whoa.
See, that's the difference. With storytelling, I think the whole team is kind of on your side.
Absolutely.
With
but
comedy,
you know what? In a comedy language, the likability game is very different. We're in a struggle to make them like us. I feel like in stories, maybe they already like you got to do something pretty bad to make them not like you.
Yeah.
You absolutely have to. I mean, storytelling death is lecturing, going up and telling people stuff like, okay, here's storytelling death. Women love shopping. Because I'm sitting there as a woman in the audience, I'm going to fuck you.
So
asshole.
Chris
I don't
Rock,
like
not
that.
a good storyteller.
Not great, right? Because so we change the language
Yeah.
in the rehearsals and say, in my experience, a lot of women love shopping. Okay, now I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, no.
Yeah.
Sarah loves shopping.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
My wife loves shopping.
Yeah.
Great. Okay,
There,
we can do
perfect.
that.
Yeah. Limit it to the only one you know.
Yeah. or,
That's an
you
old
know,
trick, you know. You make gender-based or whatever-based commentary by just targeting an
But that's-
individual, you know?
See, that's the thing with comedy. Sometimes the comics are out there to kind of have a fight with the audience, you know,
We'll
where
pick
you
a
kind
fight.
of you pick a fight in a way, but you know, you can play around with the dance where you're kind
There's
of
different
offending them.
kind of comics. There's
Yeah.
people who are very likability driven. And
Yeah.
the crowd's just going to love them no matter what they say. There's other people who are going to kind of piss them off the whole way through. Anyway, we're not talking about
Yeah.
We're totally.
Now, I'm actually
So-
curious about one thing. Now, storytelling. See, what is considered hacky? You know,
Yeah,
that's
that's
what
a
I really want to
great
know.
question,
Like,
yeah.
for example, with comedy, let's say Andy went up on stage, did a French accent. That's hacky.
Oh,
Yeah, I would say what's been done.
Yeah.
we cut out the accents if we possibly can. Like if
So
it's
that
not,
is hacky for
If
you.
it's not, well, it's not that's hacky. It's fucking offensive.
Right.
We're not trying to offend anybody. In fact, we're trying to keep everybody on our side at all times.
Mm.
So if you go up and you do an Indian accent and it's awful and you're not Indian, you don't have
I was
any
going to say,
background
what
in
if
it.
you're Indian?
Yeah, it's kind of like.
If
You're
it's
like,
your mom's
see,
accent, that's totally cool.
Now, I'll use an example. Now, I'm curious about this. So, I'm Indian, but I have a kind of weird Americanish accent. But what if I
Yeah,
do
from
my
Hong Kong
story?
accent.
Yeah, Hong Kong, American, whatever. I don't know, combination.
I am Vivek Law.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, that's the question. If I were telling a story about my life in Hong Kong, and it involved my Hong Kong Chinese friend and my Indian grandparent,
Yeah.
would it be all right if I'm like, hey, so the other day my grandfather said, hey, what is this? And my friend said, I don't know.
Absolutely, but there's
Okay.
the authenticity, and storytelling is all about authenticity.
And you're also Indian.
Yeah, so I can get away.
So,
I'm
but-
Asian too, so the
If
Chinese
I
part.
was like, I heard Vivek's parents talk the other day, and they were like, no. There you go. So immediately, both of you.
Yeah, it's immediately offensive
Yeah,
though.
we're
in the
gonna
storytelling
acoustically take away the bobbling head that you just did. Now we're gonna remove that, so you won't feel it in the podcast, but he really did that.
I'll put the mic shaking.
We stay away from accents because what we
So
tell
accents
people,
is hack and storytelling.
I mean, it's
Unless-
easy.
So I guess
unless
it's more
it's-
about being offensive. But is there something that's
unless
done?
it's your storytelling, unless it's your accent.
But is there something that you feel when you hear it? You're like, I've heard this too many times.
No, because everybody
That's what
tells
hack is.
their own story. So you haven't
Really?
heard it the way they've told it. If somebody comes up and tells you a story that you've heard 100,000 times, you're not going to select them for the show. So who cares?
So no originality, or you don't feel that it's fully original. They're just kind of doing the same typical topic of like, oh, I went to a bar, tried to pick up someone, didn't work out.
Yeah, we don't do the whole like, I went to Lang Kwai Fong and picked up this chick and then I picked up this other. You're like, yeah, dude, first of all, it's not true.
Yeah,
Because you wouldn't be up here telling us about it.
yeah, true.
So, like, because we have a bar of truth to start with, we get rid of all that shit to begin with. Like, we don't need to deal with all that stuff.
What do you feel has been in what you've done with it, like kind of the big moments, like big show or a moment when you felt like you'd hit a new level?
The moments when the whole crowd is crying.
Just,
Wow.
but I mean like literally like an individual date or something. Like what's
well-
the biggest show you've done?
The biggest ones we've done are with the Literary Festival, probably 200 people at JC Cube, sold out show. It feels pretty good when that happens.
Yeah,
but
200 people.
JC Cube's the new space in Taikun. Yeah, very nice room. Very nice.
It is. The lights don't go down.
It's weird. Okay, so
The
it's
lecture room.
it's a really it's a lecture room. It's really bizarre. So it's a small cube, literally a cube, lecture room style seating. So it's like really sloped up, right? And you don't have a back green room or a back room dressing room. You just literally walk in through the same entrance that the audience does.
There is a green room. They just didn't let you use it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, they probably looked at me. They're like, "Yeah, you don't need a green
give it to
room."
the Indian guy.
Yeah,
The other thing about the JC Cube is the seats are so comfortable
Yeah.
in the audience.
not good, right?
Can you tell us a little bit about the Literary Festival? Did you guys, that was existing before you, right?
Oh yeah. The Literary Festival, they're in the 20th year now. And we did shows at the Literary Festival for 3 years in a row. Last year we didn't have a show. They had a new director, so we weren't part of it.
I remember doing it when Tom was here. I did the
Literary
death match. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was like one of the commentators. I think they have like three, right? One's like a drama guy, one's like a
Was
story.
that with the Lit Fest?
I think so because it was at Fringe Club.
I wasn't really involved in that one, so I don't know.
Oh, okay,
But
yeah.
we have had, since 2014, we've had our own week of comedy.
Hey,
We're infecting you.
It's all starting.
the subconscious mind
I can
speaketh.
feel the carapace growing on me already.
Did you just bobble your head a little bit?
Okay, just edit that. We're gonna take that out again. No effect over that. Yeah.
Just going to draw your attention to the dress that I'm wearing today, just in case you guys got offensive. This is my duck dress.
That's great. I love it.
I forget what I was going on.
You're talking about the literary.
yeah.
So,
Lit
so
Fest.
we were involved in that, but we've had our own called.
Spoken Word Festival.
We had Storyworthy Week for a bit, and then we had Top Notch. But they're all basically Hong Kong stories, putting on our best of the best. So we bring back the best stories, the most commanding stories from the past 12 months. and
That
put
must
them
be
up on
pretty
stage.
good. You can stack up a best of show. I feel like that'd be a pretty
Oh,
strong
yeah.
show.
It's a good story, but all of our shows are strong. They're kind of always on. I
Well-
know that sounds really hacky and weird, but
No,
our
no, no,
shows
it's
are,
just
are
wildly
all kind of-
overconfident. No.
Yeah, no, they're all unique and they're all different.
Well, I think
but they're all
based
kind
on
of awesome.
the way you've been talking about how you vet different people, you go through the process.
Yeah,
You're
we
not
work
just like
hard.
whatever, come tell a story. It's like you properly actually have a QC, quality controlling everything. So it would make sense that the shows are actually everyone's coming here almost cheering up.
Yeah.
Do you have what's the balance like between local and foreign?
So for a very long time, we were mostly foreign because we do only speak in English. So we tried in Cantonese twice. I was in one of the Cantonese shows. Which is hilarious.
How's your Cantonese?
Hola.
I was crying because I didn't know what they were saying.
Well, this is the only show. Okay, so I've done a lot of spoken word and a lot of, storytelling and a lot of shows. This is the only show where it was at the Fringe Club. We had about 40 people in the audience. I'm telling the story about how in Cantonese class you learn how to buy fruit.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's the first thing you learn. I don't know why. Ligo pingo,
Yeah.
and then it's like, and then tomorrow it's like they go taiji. I can't remember how to say grapes now. These grapes, how much are they? And I'm holding up cue cards because I know my Cantonese is shit, right? Like, I know it's hard to understand, but I'm not saying anything too complicated. So I'm holding up cue cards and I get to oranges and I go ligo tang hai get it and the entire audience, there's this intake of breath that's audible, and they go. Tang.
Oh, they're correct.
Right.
Can I correct your pronunciation?
Yeah.
I've done stand-up in Mandarin. Same thing. I get them halfway through a punchline. They're like, it's chungs. I'm like, shut up. That's the punchline.
I envy you guys. I say my Cantonese perfectly, so I don't get this experience.
All right.
Yeah,
Well,
No. But no, I put it this way. But yeah, I think that's a really different experience because even with Cantonese storytelling, the audience themselves, because first of all, honestly, in Hong Kong, in Cantonese language, storytelling isn't a common thing you do at home. So no one's actually got this habit of, I want to tell you a story, right? It's literally like bed, speak, that kind of thing. And so when you tell someone, come tell a story, not only are we lost with the idea of like, oh, really? I don't know. Huh? Number two, we're so not used to telling it. We don't even know how to tell stories anymore. So that's actually what's happened a lot of times.
Why did it become more local, do you think?
Because people come to practice their English, which is great, to practice public speaking, which is great. There's another group that I won't mention.
For the record, that was no.
Yeah, exactly.
That a lot of people go to for public speaking help, but it's very commercially based, and it's very, let's
How to improve a presentation kind of thing.
How to do a PowerPoint with better emotion.
You can't say uhs and ahs.
Yeah, it's and then people go, okay, well, this is great. I've won all the accolades, but I'm still a crap storyteller.
I think
because without the slides, it's
Yeah.
not so good.
So
they come to us.
And that must have really given a big diversity to the, perspectives that you're getting in the shows.
Yeah. To get people to tell that story and to pull all the details out of them and say, okay, that's nice. I'm glad that you have a moral to your story, but now take that out because we don't do morals.
Oh.
Like if you're...
Is that a real thing?
Yeah.
You get morals out of there.
Do not stand on our fucking stage and tell people, and the moral of this story, because if it isn't obvious in your story...
Your story sucks.
Yeah, your story sucks. It shouldn't be up there. Like, you should not lecture to us. I'm sorry.
What's interesting...
You say that as a lecture.
I mean, what's interesting is because, like, back in school, you're always taught you got to end the thing with the summary, and because we will kind of wrap it up and everything. I mean, even with other speech associations / groups, they're always like, so what's the conclusion? We need the opening lines. Oh, okay. Because I've always had
that out of our storytellers as quickly as possible. Like, please don't start. And most people, when they come to a workshop, of course, they start their story. So this is a story about me and my brother. And you're like, yeah, we're going to find that out in a minute when you tell us. Like, you don't need to tell us what the story is about before you start talking. That's the point of the storytelling.
So there's a lot of work how many workshops do people do before they get to the stage?
So typically it's about a month, and we do at least 4.
So once a week to get in
at
there.
least 4. There's one final rehearsal that you must be at, and there's a lot of back and forth between the host and the storyteller. So you send in a written copy or a recorded copy.
It's a lot of work for you.
But it's workshopped within the group as well. So you've got 8 people and a host who are working together to get all those stories down. It is a lot of work, which is another reason why I change hosts every month.
Yeah, hosts got to work, man. Yeah, fair enough.
Oh, for sure.
And everybody does it for free, which is weird.
So tell me, so you've also got a massive podcast now.
Yes, we do.
When did you start that?
Enormous. We started the podcast in 2017, but really 2018.
Yeah, and it sounds like it's a pretty steady growth as well.
Yeah, it's pretty good. We get a good number of listeners. We're up, past 100,000, which is nothing for something in English language in the US or something, but for Hong Kong,
It's a lot. Actually, it's
amazing.
a lot. The average podcast gets 150 downloads, so you're well
so
beyond that.
We're way above that.
Yeah. And that must have. How did that change what you were doing to have the podcast as well?
The podcast is really something like we're asking people to put in a hell of a lot of work to come up on stage. No one gets paid during this whole process. All the proceeds go back into hosting our shows and advertising and stuff like that. So we're asking people to do a hell of a lot to get up there, and it was a way of rewarding our storytellers. Like, if you come up and tell a story, you'll be podcasted.
And capture the moment as well. Like they
Yeah.
can always go back to it
Yeah,
afterwards.
and they can use it as a brag, and they can use it as people have used it for work presentations before and said, "This is what I sound like when I'm recorded." So,
But then what's like the growth path? I mean, with comedy, you would think, okay, you start with a club, then you can maybe do some festivals, do your own show, and
But
just
people
keep
aren't
going.
trying to be professional, right? Like,
Well, no, right? So storytelling is more of I'm enjoying myself. It's I'm really thoroughly enjoying. So the incentive's very different.
very different. We just started last year. We started doing a student story slam competition, which does not roll off the tongue, I'll have to admit, because I do the hosting for the podcast, and that is like
Abbreviated as
story slam
so
competition.
sorry, slams.
yeah.
So
Well,
we
it's a good
started doing
warm up.
that.
Good warm up exercise.
Unique New York. Story slams.
Bumblebee.
I did an interview podcast for a long time in Shanghai, and what someone pointed out to me, which I didn't realize as I was doing it, was becoming kind of a time capsule of that era in Shanghai. And you must have a similar thing. You must be getting all these perspectives that represent the city, right?
Oh, for sure. We get all kinds of things that are very focused on here and now in Hong Kong, and also an era of your life. I mean, that's a tiny slice of your life that you're holding up there and saying, "Judge me for it." And it's always positive. Storytelling is such a feel-good community.
So jealous. So jealous.
Ah, it does never
Now,
heard of this.
let me ask you this. So let's say someone's performing on stage, right? A storyteller, they're doing their story, and they're not doing too well. The other performers, what are they feeling like? With comedy, it's highly likely while you're bombing on stage, you've got someone laughing in the back, and they're known as comedians, right? They're enjoying the fact that you're struggling on stage.
Yeah, someone loves you shit in the bed.
yeah.
Someone's in love with that. Someone's having
Comedy's
this.
so hard.
Yeah. And they'll laugh like you'll get. And then
Still
you'll hear
do
this.
this.
Yeah, the little delayed, that bombed. Next.
You guys are amazing. I can't. Yeah, we've got. So the way we set up our stage is a bit indicative of what storytelling is like. You've got one guy up in the middle of your stage in front of a microphone, all by themselves under the spotlight, but you've got 8 other people sitting 4 and 4 on either side of you. Who, if you're stumbling, they're going, "You were in Singapore." Oh yeah, I was in Singapore. It's cool. So they're there supporting you. They're the
Oh,
first ones to
man.
clap.
Wow, you mean
that.
like
They're
let's
going,
say
"You can do it," when you're messing up.
wow, so like halfway through your story, so the line
Yeah.
and you get a response?
Yeah,
Wow, I
absolutely.
would love that. That'd be crazy. Imagine
so
doing
basically everyone has their own Rob Schneider in the audience.
yeah, like a
You
stunt
can do
double.
it!
Yeah, all right, let's
Cut his head off.
We are the friendliest
really
way
supportive.
of doing presentations.
It's almost like you're nice people. Like,
Yeah.
what's going on?
That's what it's like.
Only
What
like
is this
nice people who have good stories to tell. It seems like
Nah, we have our share of assholes as well, myself included at times. Yeah.
okay, fair enough. I
At
guess
least
you have to
you're
balance.
honest about it.
It's a very zen thing. You have to balance
mean,
good and bad.
That's
yin
what
and yang.
happens when you don't get any judgment.
Yeah, right. Everyone's just smiling.
No one
Okay.
judges you. Like, I guess I can be an asshole.
We also vet the story. So if somebody's up on stage and they're and you know as the host they're a bit of an asshole, the audience doesn't know because you've already edited their story so they sound nice.
Right.
Right, like
You've
you've
added a
got-
bit of humility in there.
You've gone and said, "You know, when you say that, you sound like an asshole.
Ah.
Take that out of your script." And
Okay.
they do, and they change it, and it's great. And you've got,
So wow. I mean, I guess the egos are very different with comics. I mean, if you come up to a comedian like, "Hey, man,
Oh, it's
you-
tough to give feedback.
yeah, you should do it this way," you're like, no, I
Yeah.
should do it my way,
You're
and you
like-
should write a new joke.
The best
Yeah.
I ever get is like, "Oh, thanks," and then they never do it that way.
yeah. See, if the host says to you, "You should do it this way," and you say, "No, I don't think I will," you say, "You should really pitch for next month because I'm not the host you should be working."
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, if we're booking someone, they're already on the path to being professional.
Yeah.
So we don't
Fair
sort of
enough.
book
Yeah, I
below
think
that.
so. That's a different benchmark, I suppose, with comedy.
We
Whereas
don't have to
it's-
have the kitty gloves on with them. They're
Yeah.
there because they're good.
Yeah. You come on stage, you better be ready on your own. You figure it out, and if you're not, you're in trouble, and you're on your own on stage.
Our people are not professionals. We are by nature amateurs.
Okay.
When we get up on stage, yeah. Most of the people who get up there have never done public speaking before. They've never told a story on stage before. And they've come along for the experience of it. And most of them get hooked and they come back over and over again.
So I had a few questions from our WhatsApp group for the podcast. A question from Peter Belloc. He said, "Do you feel there are any areas that are taboo or unpopular for stories?"
I mean, it's mostly just how you tell the story that's taboo. We like to put up whatever we can. We have problems with politics in Hong Kong at the moment because that's a really divisive issue. And again, we don't want to alienate half of our audience. So when you're telling your story, if your story comes out as, oh, you blue people are like this and you yellow people are like that, you're telling the wrong story. But we've had a few storytellers who've come up and told stories about political events that have happened, and it's almost like not till the very end do you realize, oh, they're on this side or the other. That's a really well told story. The audience is all with you no matter what side they're on. They're feeling what you feel, and they're experiencing what you experience, and they're like, yeah, I can see how that could be that way, even if I'm on the other side. So you do get taboo sort of stuff, but if you tell your story well, you can still have your audience there with you.
So keep it more multidimensional then, right? Not to skew on one way of this is a right or wrong or black or white. It's more like colorful and touch upon everything. And at the end, I mean, people judge for themselves. Okay, based on what you said, I kind of feel that you are on this angle or this tangent. Oh, okay.
Yeah. If you go up there and you're telling a story about, everybody, this is the way things are, it's not a story, it's a lecture.
Okay. So knowledge is not the key here. It's really just
not.
emotion.
Right?
Yeah, emotion.
And honesty, I guess.
Yeah.
So we had another question from Sean. He said, "What do you have any thoughts on free speech changing here and that affecting you?"
I have a lot of thoughts on that. I don't think we have long enough on this podcast for me to go through them all.
Can we bang it out quickly?
Can we changing Hong Kong stories? No, because Hong Kong stories is all about finding that humanity within the story rather than the politics within the story.
So you think you're apolitical enough that you wouldn't pop onto a radar in the near future? Or?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you can't keep the politics out, if you can't tell your story from a human-centric point of view, we don't want you on our stage.
Right. So your need for a lack of politics precedes
But I think because
what might happen, politically
For
here.
sure.
Yeah, but I mean, that's because the focus isn't on the judgmental, it's the emotion. And whichever side you're on, emotions are involved.
Yeah.
And usually you're on one side because of emotions anyway, right? With
Yeah.
politics especially.
If we have somebody come to our shows and pitch a story that's clearly one side or another, and they can't bring it into getting that human-centric point of view, they're not welcome up on our stage. Free speech or not, it's
just not what you do, right?
No, it's not. We're not a platform for motivating or political speech or anything like that. We're a platform for sharing human-centric stories.
So would you ever pull someone off a stage if they're just going off on a tangent?
Yeah,
and-
what would you...
Yeah.
How do you pull them off?
Yeah.
If they go out,
You got a hook? You got the shepherd's hook?
We've only had it happen a couple of times, and it hasn't happened in
Anyone
recent
throw
years.
tomatoes? Yeah.
No,
Fade
unfortunately,
out
we're
the
not allowed
mic
to.
slowly.
I've done that. Throw the music on, kill the mic. Try beating my sound system, motherfucker.
We have had a couple of people who've come up with their own agendas. They've workshopped their story, and then they've come up and gone, right, so the story that I was going to tell, and it's literally the host going up and saying, yeah, that's not the story you're telling tonight, though. Thank you. Everybody clap. Now go sit down.
No way. How
Wow.
often does that happen? That's
Not very
Just
often.
interrupts and just cuts them
Yeah.
off.
This is not what we agreed on here.
Wow.
Getting up on our stage is a
Oh,
privilege that we
man.
afford you. It is
That's
not a
gotta be
right.
that's if you go to like the Formula One, you kind of want to see the cars crash. I feel like that's the bit you want to see.
Yeah.
But okay, so imagine you're sitting there in the audience. You've just heard 6 stories that were absolutely amazing. This guy comes up and wanders on about whatever political agenda or social agenda or personal agendas he's got, and it's not.
Oh, I don't want to hear his story. I want to hear the MC being like, "You're out."
Yeah.
No, we just go up and say, thank you very much. You cover up the microphone and you say, please sit down now. And they do.
There's no way that is a smooth
Man,
process.
if I
You're like, it is. It's really cool. Just say,
Yeah.
I can tell you a story.
No, seriously.
And
It's
they're
only
like,
happened
"Oh,
a couple
I'm
of
sorry."
times, but people are pretty good about it.
Wow.
Wow.
They're up there for a reason. They
Well, I mean,
See, that's-
one thing I know about crowds. You talk about likability. You do that, the crowd must hate the person. There must be a real animosity for the person fucking the show, right?
Well,
I guess the crowd would kind of see going like, okay, I see why the host had to do that, and they could
No, I'm
appreciate
thinking
it.
the crowd would be on the side of the host.
Oh, okay, okay,
the
yeah.
crowds are usually, like, we only had it happen twice, but the crowd has always been on the side of the host. But it's more just that, they're, okay, what's next?
Wow.
The next guy gets up. They've forgotten all about it by then.
But,
It's
but,
fine.
but the host is still kind of nice about it. I mean, if I were the host, I would be like, all right, so thank you very much. That's your story. You can unfollow him on Instagram. You can unfollow him on Facebook.
I love the idea of being apolitical, you know. It's like,
Yeah.
you get up, you're like, I'm not going to say which political party I'm in, but I was being beaten up by a police officer.
Yeah.
Well, we had somebody come up and tell this really amazing story about how she was caught by her parents because they found zip ties in her backpack. And she told it so beautifully.
And then it turned out she was actually just a concert producer.
No, at no point did she state her political point of view. She just told about how the emotional roller coaster that she went on when her family found these zip ties in her backpack and what that meant to her and her family's relationship.
That's wonderfully specific. Yeah, I like that.
It was beautiful. It was beautifully done.
I think that's smart. So basically, you're kind of indirectly leaving a blank for the audience to fill in themselves, and that's the beauty of it.
Is clever. They know what they're doing.
Okay.
They know
Okay.
what the story is.
Do you guys ever get hecklers?
Occasionally, though, it's usually somebody who's had a bit too much to drink.
So it's
at
the
break.
drinking, right? It's not someone who's just
It's
there
usually
to mess it up.
Australians.
Apolitical.
British
very
people. You just think they're Australian.
No.
Brits.
But not very often. And honestly, our hecklers are always quite.
Was the show
They're
where
like,
there was
"Oi, why'd you have zip ties?
exactly.
No, we've never. We did have one. I don't know. There was some pineapple on pizza once, and there was a little bit of.
Oh,
Oh, that's a
no.
big
Don't do that.
controversy in my
Yeah.
country. All right, let's keep it apolitical.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly,
I mean,
exactly.
food
So-
is food. Let's feel good.
But the person on stage was just like, And as I was saying,
Yeah.
because we're not comedy. So the thing about hecklers is they're only want to heckle if they get the attention because they're pulling the attention away from the person on the stage. And no one pays them any attention, so they shut up.
Well, I suppose, I mean, if someone's coming to listen to stories, they're kind of a different state of mind, you know? Like, there's no challenge. No one comes in with their arms crossed going like, all right, make me feel.
Well,
Yeah.
there's also,
No one's doing that,
there's
right?
also, I'm guessing there's also less interaction.
Yeah.
Problem with heckling is you permit some people to talk,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but you don't realize it's that
Yeah.
some people don't appreciate that it's controlled. You know,
Yeah.
In fact, it's another thing we take out during the workshopping process. You know, people-
interaction.
Absolutely.
Take it out.
Take it right out. We get people who come in and they say, so you know how it feels when this happens to you, right? Has it ever happened to anybody else? And we're like, yeah, take
Clap
that
your
out.
hands if you also have zip ties.
Yeah, exactly.
Take it
Right.
out because it's not.
This guy
stand-up
knows what I'm
comedy.
talking about.
Yeah.
And you're not a professional and you don't know how to deal with that.
Oh.
So take it out. So we get the people to take that out right from the beginning before they get up on stage.
That's fascinating.
Wow. I mean, that reminds me of,
They
you
don't
know,
know what to do.
you know, like on TV, sometimes you have those guys on the couches and the camera slowly zooms in and they turn to the camera like, oh, you're here. And they start telling their story, right, by the fire.
For the record, I have no idea what you're talking about.
I sort of get it.
I mean, they have it in the
It's
cultured
on the
world, you know,
chair.
outside of Australia. They have it all over there.
Mate, our TV is just pizzas with pineapple, all right?
And zip ties.
Zip ties.
We're going to zip tie the box.
They're the two political parties in Australia. There's the zip tie
yeah,
rights
yeah, exactly.
and the pineapple rights.
What if
Wow.
you like zip ties and pineapple?
Well, then you have to move to Hong Kong.
Right, fair enough.
Yeah.
So it's a little hard in the current environment for you to tell people when they can go and see the next show. But how do we come and see? You're going to have some stuff coming up. Hopefully, some booked at the Riff, maybe.
Well, we can't wait to actually perform here because if you guys haven't been to this venue, listeners, if you haven't been to this venue before, it's really awesome and it brings it up another notch. So it's pretty cool. So we're excited about coming here and performing. But upcoming shows at the moment, we're going to be at the Fringe in June and July. Our website, hongkongstories.com, you can find all the information on there. We update it as soon as possible. And you can listen to our podcast, which also has the same name, weirdly, which is handy.
Hong Kong
Makes it
stories.
easier. Yeah. It's cryptic. You didn't go with moth again?
Yeah.
No, we tried. But again, the cease and
Type
desist.
1, get 2. Wow. Efficiency.
HongKongStories.com. The only thing we don't have is the Facebook.